What if you would go to a doctor and the doctor would actually have time for you, not looking at the laptop? You don't see the top of his head, but he looks you into the eyes. That's a scenario we don't have at the moment, but quite possible we will soon have it with AI. And to go deeper in that topic, we talk to Richard Kedziora. He's co-founder of Estenda. It's a medical health software company. And let's see what he has to offer in the field of medical, because medical is the thing where AI really can change lives. Welcome to another episode of the Beginner's Guide to AI. Today, again, an interview episode. I hope you have fun with it. Hi Ajay, welcome to the podcast. And I can talk a lot about myself, but it's not about me. Let's see, let's give the word to you and tell me a little bit about you. What got you interested in AI?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation. AI has been a passion for me since before I even remember. I started in probably middle school, just reading science fiction, AI, love Isaac Asimov. That was my passion. When I went to college, university in the early 90s, my goal was to get a PhD in artificial intelligence way back when. And I was on that journey, I was on that path, and then I got a job offer. And it was like, take on a lot more debt or go make some money. So I did sort of shift gears. You could say a little bit at that point. I didn't go off and get the PhD, but I've always been involved in projects in AI. Sort of people forget these days that AI has been around for a while. In various different forms. It has just didn't, appear, 2 years ago. It has been here for a while. So always passionate about AI and how it can improve our lives.
I can definitely connect to the Isaac Asimov and science fiction stuff. I read it as a youth, and it was like also my career path. But then again, you joined Estenda, and now like things come together. Already were interested in AI, and now everybody seems to be interested in AI. So what actually do you do in work life with AI now?
Yeah, it is fascinating. Estenda is a professional services firm that does software development, AI, and data analysis work. I'm actually one of the two co-founders, and we've been around for 20 years now. And a lot of AI really starts with data. As we have conversations with larger corporations, typically like the R&D groups or product development groups, and or startups, and they ask those questions like, okay, we want to do something with Gen AI. Let's go. And the first question quickly becomes, well, what have you done with your data? And that's really where Estenda has been able to make an impact over the years very quickly. First and foremost with that data, and then in training algorithms and developing the AI systems over the years. Nowadays, with the Gen AI solutions, we were pitching a couple projects and have some going, particularly around that data now. As you have large volumes of data, there is a group of people, the data analysts, that understand how to query that data, get to it, and they're familiar with SQL and R and SAS, programming languages that take skill to use, time to train in them. But particularly with the use of Gen AI and various platforms, open source and commercially available now, you can let people that don't have those skill sets start querying and understand and seek information out of that data. So instead of, writing select star from patient table where, order by, and it gets, complex really quick to make sense of that data, you can be like, how many patients are in my system? How many patients have diabetes? How many patients have diabetes and it's out of control or have chronic conditions? You can start incorporating social determinants of health to segment your population and figure out, population health strategies. So extensive uses of just the ability to query that data now using natural language as opposed to a programming language.
So basically, Estenda helps firms in the health sector to implement software or AI or so. Do I get that
Yes,
right?
yes, that is absolutely it. Usually very much on the early stages. Like if you have a very well structured, thought out process and a commodity idea that you want to do, there are, um, that's not us. We really thrive on doing the innovative solutions, creating something new. We've been fortunate that some of our customers have put our names on patents because we've been so much part of that creation process. And then we have PhDs on staff to help drive, the clinical research, the analysis of that data and publications. We just had something published in JAMA Ophthalmology around the analysis of images for diabetic retinopathy. Diabetic retinopathy is one of the leading causes of preventable blindness now. And so we've developed algorithms and we're able to publish that in a top tier journal. And one of the software developers had their name on that journal. I don't know that they quite recognize the significance of that, but kudos to them. It was good for them.
So it just this that means I go as a patient, I have diabetes, go to the doctor, and they basically scan with something like a camera, a smartphone, my eye, and say, okay, that is dangerous. We have to do something.
Yes, that's what it, in layman's terms really boils down to. Like if you can identify, the earlier stages of disease, then it is preventable, it is treatable, which makes a big impact on your life.
Definitely. I know that there's like special doctors for diabetes, but they're not so many. You have to wait long, and with all those waiting times, yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, I like this. It's like really helping people. Yeah.
Yeah, and even as you look at the incidence of diabetic retinopathy and it's graded in levels of severity, so when you do have scarce resources, how do you allocate those resources to make a more effective impact? So it's not even just identifying incidents, it's like, how do we effectively treat it?
That is like me coming from marketing. I always look up to the people in health because I help to sell stuff basically. And then it's like developing things that help people in their life. That's, I mean, yeah. Health as a topic for AI. What do you think? For me, it sounds like, because it comes up quite often in my discussions, it seems to be one of the most important topics for AI. What do you think? Is it just me, or is it really like this?
Yeah, everybody is now thinking about AI, and particularly Gen AI. It is the important part I guess, two important things to remember. One, you don't need to be those top tier engineers, the people that, think of that work at Facebook or Meta or Google. There are APIs, there are systems available to help implement these solutions. But the second half of that equation is you do have to recognize it's not perfect. It doesn't solve every problem. So you have to find the appropriate use cases and put the controls around them to make sure that they don't have a negative impact or increase your risk beyond a level that you're not comfortable with. A lot of people think about AI in terms of replacing doctors in doing diagnoses. And it can help in that, but that's not where the true use cases are today. Like one, I think of AI as augmented intelligence. So how do we help those clinicians, the healthcare providers, with better decision making? Humans make errors. There is some recent reporting, approximately 400,000 hospitalized patient experiences had some preventable harm. And that it's just humans are humans. We get tired, we're capable of making mistakes. So how can we use the power of tools and technology and AI to help with that? Makes a big difference. Another area, in particular Gen AI, that I love now, and it's getting quickly adopted across the industry, is the idea of ambient listening and note taking. Like so many people now use Teams and Google and Zoom, and you can see the power of that where it's taking notes for you, and you don't have to have a human scribe doing that. Doctors, nowadays are required to document in their medical record system. Most don't like that experience. It's not the best, user interface for doing that. They want to work with the patients.
Exactly.
They want to interact with the patients. So if you can have an AI listening in the room, taking notes, to provide that feedback, it makes that experience much more human. Using technology to make it more human, which is nice. But then it can also, as it's aware of what's in the medical record system and other conditions and research in general, it can surface ideas and suggestions, potentially even questions to ask, directions to go. And then the doctor is that the medical professional can be the interface between that AI and the computer. Because again, you do have to worry about, risk.
The risk, like an ambient listener that listens and doesn't get things right, that is obviously problematic. So in the hallucinations in ChatGPT, okay, but in that case, you have to really rely on the source. The data has to be reliable. Yeah, that's quite important.
Interesting anecdotal stories like that I've heard, and even in my own experience. One was, a patient talks about, when they're going to sleep, they have trouble settling down, their legs are restless, and so they take a shot of whiskey. Okay. What you see in the documentation is not patient takes a shot of whiskey, is patient self-medicates. So it does that translation into, okay, this is what the patient said, and this is really like in medical speak, so the next person, understanding this can get that. In my own experience, I've been using ChatGPT and, all the other Gen AI systems for a while now, and try and do it in just everyday life. And I was just asking what I want for dinner, and was, describing my diet, and, I try and eat more plants, but still like meat and stuff. And so it translates that, and it's like in your flexitarian diet lifestyle. I was like, okay, it understood and made that translation into, the way I described it. Thought I was trying to be helpful for the AI and stuff like that. It made that connection. Probably most interestingly, for a webinar I did a while ago, using AI in product development, I prompted it to create me a behavioral change app for helping people deal with the fear of peanut butter getting stuck to the roof of your mouth. I'm like, okay, let's create something comical, make the webinar interesting. And the quick response was like, really? Like, I detect a note of sarcasm. Like, nobody does this. It just caught me off guard. It was like, oh, wow. And then I was like, yes, I do want to do this. And it was able to generate lots of ideas and conversational topics. So it was interesting.
Oh, that reminds me of the times of Rembrandt when people slept sitting because they were afraid that God would let the tongue fall into their mouth and they would suffocate. And it's like, yeah, there's no, but yeah, that's so Jenna, I remember this thing, a guy saying, okay, if you go to the doctor and you say you go to I don't know, country somewhere around the world and you need vaccinations. A normal doctor doesn't know that, doesn't need to know that, because how often does that happen? You ask the machine and it tells you what to do, and the doctor just has to know, is there something problematic? And if then the doctor, I mean, they have like I don't know, 5 minutes for a person or so. If they don't look close enough, they might give you something, a vaccination that kind of is not good for your other medications or whatever. So the AI would say, those things, I think, are really like something. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely can help with that checks and balances and just sharing up that knowledge. I've seen where, medical knowledge doubles every 5 years. Humans can't keep up with that. And
No.
just even if it was less than that, I can't keep up with all the stuff that goes through LinkedIn or the journals that are published nowadays. You just can't keep up with all that information. But it addresses another point, the use of technology and the AI, where you just referenced, the doctor has 5 minutes with you, if you're lucky. It's doctors are pushed more and more, see more patients, do more billing. Hospitals don't have, great margins. Primary care professional doctors aren't making $1 zillion kind of thing. They're doing it because they're helping people. And there's, here in the US, there's a mental health crisis. There's an obesity crisis. There are not enough professionals to treat everybody that needs that assistance. So how can we develop the tools and the solutions that better, work for patients? And using Gen AI is, I think, a huge, powerful opportunity to meet the patients where they are. So what is their medical literacy? What is their language literacy? It's like delivering the solution in, different languages as opposed to just English. So yeah, lots of potential there that we're exploring.
Do firms already see that? What's your experience out there? Are firms aware that they need to use AI when they come to you, or how is it?
Yeah, a lot of the questions are how do we use AI? Like how are we going to implement this and where it makes sense? And as I referenced early on, okay, let's first start with data. What are we working with here? And you have to think about governance and privacy and the security of that information. Make sure that is in place, and then you can address the AI and how you're going to effectively use that data. But yeah, there is a lot of interest in the venture capital community, the investment in healthcare. It took off through COVID, sort of took a nosedive, 2023 kind of thing. It's definitely coming back strong now. And with a focus on AI, this is, where companies are engaging and how do you use this technology? A lot of it is really where it's making differences in efficiency, in that ambient listening or writing communications and things of that nature, billing, back office types of things.
Yeah, this is like the quality of work is better afterwards. This is, I think, yeah, what you said is not replacing a doctor, or is not the idea, because there are basically not enough doctors or medical personnel or whatever. So it can definitely help. Yeah. So I'm happy to hear that the firms already are there. There was just a report in Germany that the German firms, they're like 12 or 13% of the firms only think about AI. I don't believe the study. It's a big study, but I don't believe that. But still, I'm happy that worldwide more is happening, because I mean, health is everybody needs someone at a certain point to help in health areas. But yeah, so let's say come back to you yourself. What do you personally use ChatGPT for?
I try and use it a lot for brainstorming, helping me create ideas, do quick summaries of information. I think of it as an 80% solution. So it'll get me 80% of the way there. And then I need to add that extra 20% and tweak it. And what's been interesting is as more and more people are using it, we're sort of catching on to the tendencies in AI and the content that it creates. And it does tend to use certain words more often than others. And so when I see, people generating content and, you see that word particularly, or like at the end, it's like, in conclusion, it's like, okay, that was probably probably an AI that generated it and then tweak that. But that's where that 80%, comes in. But how do we use it? So, internally for software development, I just was able to, my life did start as a software developer. Don't do that much anymore, but I still like to play with it and was able to get some quick solutions going for demonstration purposes. As we're working with a particular customer trying to close a deal. It's like, okay, here's how I think this can work, and you can work up a quick demo. We Estenda are ISO 13485 certified, which qualifies us for medical device software development. And in reality, what it is we have a good, well-documented, structured software development process. And part of that is training, so, and we're in continuous improvement. So recently we've been taking our documents and saying, hey, create a set of questions around this document. So when we train new employees, or that you retrain on a particular document or process, it's like we can make sure that, you did retain that knowledge. Yes, people can do that. But it's so much faster.
Yeah.
I had to do a usability interview. I was interviewing some PhDs around olfactory research and the loss of smell. It was a new subject area for me. So, did my requisite research, and I've been creating usability surveys and questions, doing these for decades now. So I'm very comfortable doing them. But I was able to plug in my parameters, what I wanted to do, what I was looking to get out of it. And he created me 10 questions very quickly. So it's very much about efficiency. There's use cases. Stanford has a new system called Genie out there that will generate you effectively a 10-page wiki style article on a topic in seconds, which is just next level. It makes it interesting. It's no longer just, a page or a paragraph or something like that. Here's a whole well thought out, intro, discussion, conclusions on a particular topic. So the potential is just mind blowing. Every day it's sort of like, okay, what next can I do with it? I was just talking to one of our researchers the other day, and she wanted to explore how to create a new chart. And she was like, okay, let me try an experiment. She could have figured it out. She figures out all sorts of stuff every day. But she's like, it would take me hours to do this, and I was done in a half an hour. So saves us time, saves our customers time.
A thing that just popped up in my mind from what's the next thing or how is it going? What do you think? What are the next things that in healthcare that AI can solve there? How is it going to be in 5 years? 5 years, let's say 2 years or so. What do you think is coming? Huh?
It's interesting that you picked 2 years as a quote by Bill Gates that says, we tend to overestimate what's possible in that 1 to 2 year range, but underestimate what's possible in the 10-year range. So yeah, I think Gen AI is going to continue to grow, continue to gain capabilities. There are a lot of research that sort of look at ChatGPT and its equivalents, the Claude and stuff like that in medical use cases, and they're like, it doesn't do great. Well, there are specifically trained large language models to work in those experiences. So I look forward to seeing them getting greater use and attention to make that difference. So ambient listening is a first step. Okay, now how do we provide value on top of that? I was at a HIMSS conference, which is a large healthcare IT conference. It was dozens and dozens of vendors that were providing ambient listening, note-taking summary solutions kind of thing. And they were like right next to each other. I'm like, well, what makes yours different than, and nobody had an answer. They're just trying to create something. It's that next step, is one of the things when we engage with customers and think about innovation. Okay, what's next? It's like, okay, you're doing pattern recognition, great. Well, now how do we provide advice and recommendations to make the clinicians' life easier or the patients? So yeah, it's increasing those capabilities. The intersection of wearable health. More and more data is going to become available. How do we push that down to the individual personal level to help make better decisions? And I train to race triathlons, and I can see as I increase and ramp up my training, I can see the impact of that in my data very easily. Just my heart rate trending down over time, kind of thing. It's now when I sleep at night, my resting heart rate's in the 40s because I'm training that, and I can see that. It's very interesting to see that information. I know when I stop training, which is probably I take a break through the early winter kind of thing as it gets a little cold outside, and I'll see that. I'll see my heart rate, my resting heart rate start going back up because I'm not doing as much physical activity. So it's fascinating to see that level of information and then know what to do with it.
Yeah. From a medical perspective, what does it tell us about the person? And that is really helpful. Wearables, I find that is a thing that comes up to robots. That would be probably the next thing, but there's still a little bit ahead. We are a little bit ahead of time. I mean, not what Elon Musk says with his optimism, but maybe.
It's that 10-year horizon. I can see more and more robots being in the home performing tasks. It's interesting because where Gen AI is today, I've seen a number of people commenting that it's taking on tasks and stuff that I want to do. Like you can use it for creative purposes and brainstorming, but I want to be the creative person. I don't want to do my laundry. I just heard my dryer go off in the background. I gotta go fold towels. But let me bring a robot into the house and they can take care of that. It's very costly now, but 10 years from now, costs come down very quickly.
That's a great idea. We keep the innovation, the creativity, and the machine takes over the parts we don't want to take. Yeah, that's a good thing. That taking over is like a good, coming to my last question today, it's like taking over the world. What do you think about the Terminator or Matrix scenario? How possible is that?
Yeah, what's interesting, probably 3 weeks ago, I was asked this question and I was like, not too worried about it. And then a company created a solution where it modified its own code. And that's where you start thinking about the Terminator solution. So now the Gen AIs, they're controlled, they're in their boxes, they're really not going anywhere. But then, and this company created, it was experimental, it was contained kind of thing, but it was challenged with a problem where, an API call was taking too long and it was timing it. And so instead of trying to address it in its own encoded differently, it went into its own internal code and changed its timeout rules. It was like caught the researchers off guard. It was like, wait a minute, what's going on? That was functional. Another incident that they reported in their paper. It caused it called itself and created like a never-ending loop kind of thing. So that wasn't a great thing, but that shows you how, okay, if it was a little more capable, it could get out of control. And it's like, okay, take a penny from every transaction. Oh, infinite loop. Whoops, where don't money go? So a little more concerned today than I was 3 weeks ago, but it's a long way out.
Okay. Yeah. So one has to. It's the same like healthcare. You have to monitor the things. You have to really see what happens. Yeah. You have to document what you do. You have to see what it does. And so I think it's like the same area because it's about human life. Yeah. That I think that I take that from there. So
and circling all the way back to Isaac Asimov, his 3 laws of robotics. You just implement the risk, the guardrails kind of thing. And we don't have to worry about Terminator.
They are not allowed to hurt us. Yeah. Let's hope they can't reprogram themselves to program those laws out. That would be then the problem. RJ, it was great to having you in the interview. Where can we find you on the internet?
LinkedIn is probably really good. You can search Richard Kedziora officially, Kedzira, or Estenda. It's the company, Estenda.com, ESTENDA.com.
I put everything in the show notes.
Yeah, you need to go ask the AI how to spell my own company name.
So the last thing is, thank you, RJ, and I'm curious to see what happens, and see you in 1 or 2 years when the machines have reprogrammed themselves, and we see what happens. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Have a great one.
So that was interesting for me because health, I mean, we all care for health. We should at least, and AI will help massively in this area. So let's see what comes around the corner there. It was great talking to RJ about health and AI. Hope you also learned something. And if you didn't already subscribe to the podcast, just go to your podcast app and subscribe. Also, we have the newsletter. Go to argo.berlin/newsletter to get all the new information we have, the new interviews, to just get them into your mailbox. Yeah, that's it for now. See you in the next episode. Signing off, Dietmar from argo.berlin.